Are there moments when reality feels off? Maybe you've felt it before. A fleeting moment, a strange feeling that something just doesn't add up. Like looking in the mirror and, for a split second, not recognizing the person staring back. Or waking up from a dream so vivid that for a moment it felt more real than life itself. Is your reality a mind-bending illusion? What if that strange feeling is the first sign that you're starting to wake up? Reality feels solid, tangible, reliable. But what if it's all just an illusion? Think about what you call now, this exact moment you're living in. It seems continuous, like a steady flow of events, right? But does time really flow? Or is it just a sequence of frames your mind reconstructs? Now look around. Everything you see, objects, colors, shapes, seems to be exactly where it's supposed to be. But are you actually seeing the world as it really is? Your brain isn't a camera recording reality in an unbiased way. It doesn't capture the universe in its entirety. It edits, filters, fills in the gaps, the color of the sky, the sound of your voice, the texture of an object in your hands. None of these exist the way you think they do. Your brain doesn't see light. It interprets frequencies. It doesn't hear sounds. It decodes vibrations. It doesn't feel touch. It translates electrical signals into sensations. Everything you perceive is just a reflection of how your mind processes the universe around you. And here's the craziest part. This illusion isn't a mistake. It's essential. If your mind were exposed to the full, unfiltered reality, you'd be overwhelmed by an impossible flood of chaotic information. So, in order for you to function, your brain does something extraordinary. It creates a model of the world, a simplified, highly edited version designed to keep you alive. But if everything you perceive is just a mental simulation, that raises a pretty unsettling question. What is real? If the world you see is merely a projection interpreted by your brain, then reality isn't fixed. It can be shaped, reprogrammed, expanded, and the key to that transformation lies in how your consciousness interacts with reality. This question has been explored for centuries by great masters and thinkers. Ancient wisdom and modern science converge at a fascinating point. Reality can be manipulated. You can train yourself to see beyond the illusion, reprogram your mind, and reshape your true reality. So, are you ready to question everything you've ever believed to be true? Do you trust your senses? Are you sure you see the world as it really is? Your eyes detect light, your ears pick up sound, your skin feels touch. Everything seems solid, coherent, unquestionable. But what if I told you none of that is the absolute truth? What if everything you experience isn't reality itself, but just an edited version of it? Neuroscience has revealed something pretty unsettling. What you perceive isn't the real world, but a simulation built by your brain. Your brain isn't a camera recording facts with precision. It doesn't capture raw reality. Quite the opposite. It translates, it filters, it reconstructs. Think about it. You have never seen reality directly, never heard sounds as they actually are, never touched an object in its purest form. Everything that reaches you is just electrical signals processed in the absolute darkness of your skull. Your brain interprets those signals and turns them into images, sounds, and sensations, creating the perfect illusion of an external world. But does that external world really exist the way you believe it does? Now close your eyes for a moment and imagine a vivid dream. Inside it, everything feels real. You see, feel, experience emotions. But the moment you wake up, you realize it was nothing more than a mental construction. What guarantees that your waking experience isn't, in some way, just another kind of dream? Neuroscientists have uncovered something even more fascinating. The brain works more like a projector than a window to reality. It doesn't just receive information, it creates it. The color of the sky, the sound of your voice, the texture of an object. None of it exists the way you think it does. Your brain doesn't see light. It interprets frequencies. It doesn't hear sounds. It decodes vibrations. It doesn't feel touch. It translates electrical impulses into sensations. Reality as you know it is a mental hologram projected by your consciousness. Now think about the color red. You know exactly what it looks like. But how can you be sure that the red you see is the same red someone else sees? Color doesn't exist in the physical world. What exists are different wavelengths of light reflected by objects. Your brain receives those waves and assigns meaning to them. In other words, the red you know isn't a universal truth. It's an internal construction of your mind. And the same goes for sound. You don't actually hear musical notes, voices, or ambient noise as they truly are. What exists are air vibrations. Your brain organizes those vibrations and creates the illusion that you're hearing a melody, a conversation, or background sounds. But this illusion goes even deeper. Your brain doesn't just interpret reality, it fills in the gaps. Ever spent minutes looking for something only to realize it was right in front of you the whole time? That happens because your brain filters information. It ignores things it doesn't consider important at the moment. If something isn't within your focus of attention, it simply becomes invisible to you. Now think about what that means. If your mind can overlook something as simple as an object within arm's reach, what else could it be hiding from you? And here's something even more mind-bending. Time as you perceive it is also an illusion. If you believe time flows in a linear fashion, think again. Your brain doesn't experience reality as a continuous stream. It receives fragmented bits of information and reconstructs a timeline to create coherence. What you experience as an uninterrupted now is actually a sequence of disconnected moments that your mind stitches together to make it feel fluid. Scientists have even proven that the brain can alter your perception of the past. This phenomenon is called post-diction. In one experiment, researchers showed participants 2 flashes of light in quick succession. Normally, you'd expect people to perceive 2 separate flashes. But when a 3rd flash was added right after, the participants' brains rewrote their past perception, making it seem like all 3 flashes were evenly spaced. That means your mind doesn't just interpret reality, it literally edits your past in real time. If your sense of time can be manipulated, if your memories can be rewritten without you noticing, and if everything you see, hear, and feel is just a version constructed inside your mind, then the inevitable question arises: how much can you really trust what you call reality? And more importantly, if your mind can modify how it perceives the world, can you learn to modify your mind? What happens when you start questioning this entire construction? If everything you perceive is just a reconstruction inside your brain, then an inevitable question arises: what exists beyond the illusion of the senses? Neuroscience has already revealed that external reality isn't exactly what we think it is. But there's an even older knowledge, preserved for millennia, within the most hidden circles of spirituality, a principle that predates modern science itself and is now being confirmed by studies on consciousness and perception. This principle tells us something that at first glance might sound absurd. The universe isn't made of matter. The universe is mental. Everything that exists is a projection of the mind. The first Hermetic law, known as the principle of mentalism, states that everything in the cosmos, from the most distant galaxies to the thoughts arising in your mind, is a manifestation of consciousness. External reality isn't independent. It doesn't exist separately from your perception. On the contrary, it emerges from your consciousness, just like a dream emerges from the mind of the dreamer. Now think about the last time you had a vivid dream. While you were inside it, everything felt real. You could see, touch, feel emotions. But what was that world? It seemed solid, yet it was nothing more than a construct of your own mind. Now consider this. What if the reality you're living in right now is exactly the same, just on a larger scale? What ancient Hermetic masters already knew, and what now finds parallels in neuroscience and quantum physics, is that the universe isn't something that exists out there, separate from you. It is mental. It is consciousness. It is a projection of your mind interacting with the infinite field of reality. This means that everything you call reality is actually a reflection of your perception. There is no external world independent of the mind that observes it. What you believe to be unchangeable, solid, and objective is, in reality, malleable and subjective. But this raises an even deeper question. If reality is a mental construct, and if your mind is constantly projecting the world around you, then who is in control of that projection? If you believe your life is just a random series of events, think again. If the mind shapes reality, then the way you think, feel, and perceive the world is directly creating the experience you have. Science has already demonstrated that your thoughts affect your biology, your perception, and even your relationship with time. But what if this influence goes even further? What if the thoughts you cultivate are actually creating your reality? And here's the most important point. If everything is mind, then changing your mind means changing your experience of reality. This might sound like an abstract concept, but it's something that can be directly experienced. There are ways to train your perception, reprogram your beliefs, and alter how your mind interacts with the world. The real question is, are you aware of this process? Because, whether you realize it or not, your mind is already being programmed. The question that truly matters isn't if your reality is being shaped, but rather by whom. If you're not the one taking control of this programming, then who is? If everything you perceive is a mental construct, then the way you experience reality isn't fixed. It can be altered, reprogrammed. Ancient masters already knew that the human mind doesn't just interpret the world, it creates it. If your perception shapes your experience, then understanding and applying this principle can completely transform your life. The question is, are you aware of the process, or are you just reacting to whatever happens around you? Most people go through life without realizing they're being conditioned every single moment. Since childhood, we've been taught to believe the world follows rigid rules, that some things are impossible, that our reality is unchangeable. But these are just mental programs we accepted without questioning. If your mind has been programmed to see scarcity, limitations, and struggle, then that will be your reality. If your mind has been programmed to perceive opportunities, abundance, and growth, then that's what you'll experience. The good news: this programming isn't permanent. Just like your perception has been shaped over time, it can also be rewritten consciously. But how do you do that? How do you break free from the illusion of limitation and take control of your reality? The answer lies in 3 fundamental principles that, when applied correctly, allow you to reshape your perception and create a new reality. These principles are vibration, polarity, and correspondence. Everything in the universe is in motion. Nothing is ever truly still. From galaxies to atoms, everything vibrates at different frequencies, and your mind is no exception. Your thoughts, emotions, and mental states all carry their own vibrations. When you feel fear, anxiety, or anger, your mental frequency becomes low and dense. When you feel love, gratitude, and trust, your frequency rises. And here's the crucial point. Your vibration influences how you perceive reality. People vibrating in fear and insecurity see a threatening, chaotic world. Those vibrating in confidence and peace see a world full of possibilities. This means that changing your vibration doesn't just shift how you feel, it shifts what you perceive. So how do you raise your vibration? Start by paying attention to your daily thoughts and emotions. When you catch yourself stuck in a negative state, don't fight it. Instead, ask yourself, what would happen if I chose to see this differently? Practicing gratitude, meditation, and conscious breathing are powerful tools to elevate your mental frequency. The higher your vibration, the more your perception of reality expands. The human mind is programmed to divide everything into opposites: light and dark, good and evil, success and failure. right and wrong. But what if I told you this separation is just an illusion? The principle of polarity teaches that everything in the universe is dual, but opposites aren't really opposites. They're just extremes of the same thing. Think about temperature. Cold and hot seem like separate concepts, but they're just variations of the same thermal energy. The same applies to love and hate, courage and fear, doubt and certainty. What does this mean in practice? It means that if you're stuck in a negative state, you don't need to eliminate it. You just need to shift it to the other extreme of the same vibration. If you're feeling fear, don't suppress it. Instead, transform it into courage by shifting your perspective. If you're feeling anger, move toward understanding. If you're stuck in doubt, look at both sides and realize that everything can coexist. This principle teaches that nothing in life is fixed. Everything can be transmuted. And the more you realize this, the more you break free from the illusions that trap your mind. Have you ever noticed how certain situations keep repeating in your life? Like you're caught in a cycle of similar experiences. Whether positive or negative, that's not a coincidence. It happens because the outer world is a reflection of your inner world. The principle of correspondence states, as within, so without. If your mind is chaotic, your reality will be chaotic. If your mind is in harmony, your reality will reflect that harmony. This means that if you want to change your life, it's not enough to just change your external circumstances. You have to shift your internal perception first. So how do you apply this? Start by observing the patterns in your life. Ask yourself, what is my external reality trying to show me about my internal state? If you keep facing the same struggles, reflect, what belief of mine is creating this experience? The more you recognize that your reality mirrors your mind, the more power you have to transform it. And here's the ultimate secret. When you shift your consciousness, everything around you shifts with it. Now, the real question is, are you ready to expand your perception and take control of your reality? Or will you keep seeing the world through the same old lens? If everything you perceive isn't absolute truth but just an interpretation created by your mind, then what happens when you decide to reprogram it? Reality isn't fixed. It isn't unchangeable. It isn't just something that happens to you. Quite the opposite. Reality is shaped by your perception, and your perception can be transformed. Your thoughts aren't just automatic responses to the external world. They are creative forces that shape your life experience. You're not trapped by circumstances. You're trapped by the way you've learned to see those circumstances. And that can be changed. If your mind can be programmed, then why keep living in the limited version of reality you were taught to accept? The ancient Hermetic masters knew this truth. Modern science is only beginning to understand it. Reality isn't a prison. It's a mirror. What's within manifests outward. What you believe becomes real. And that brings us to the big question, what do you choose to believe? The way you see the world today isn't the only way to see it. Your perceptions can change. Your beliefs can be rewritten. Your mental state can be elevated. And when that happens, everything around you shifts. If your life up to this point has been a reflection of unconscious thoughts, then what would happen if you took control of that projection? You can keep believing the world is something that happens outside of you, or you can wake up to the fact that the external world is a reflection of your internal state. If everything is mind, then your mind is the key to everything. Now, take a look at your life. Look at the patterns that keep repeating, the experiences that seem cyclical. Look at how you react to situations. None of this is a coincidence, it's all perception. And perception can be altered. The question isn't whether you can shape your reality. The question is, are you willing to take control of that process? The decision is yours. What do you choose to see from this moment forward?